Hello, my name is Luke Gagne, a senior solution engineer here at UiPath. The focus of today's conversation is outlining how we can use agentic automation to resolve our lost participant process. Before we start the demonstration, let's take a moment to define what we mean when we talk about a discrepant address. What it boils down to is a discrepant address occurs when the address we have for a former employee or customer doesn't match the internal records that we have. This often results in undeliverable or returned mail. You might be asking yourself, why exactly do I care? And this is because companies must resolve these discrepancies to meet both regulatory and operational obligations. And this is not just true for one industry. This is across multiple industries within the financial and insurance space. Examples could be pension plans, consumer banks, health and life insurance providers. Regardless of vertical, the resolution steps follow a very similar pattern where companies have to check internal records. They use third-party tools such as LexisNexis or TransUnion to conduct these third-party searches, reach out to these customers or these employees via a known phone number or email, and try to get that updated address. Typically within our businesses, this is a small team that maintains this process. They usually have to spot check records because it's not necessarily scalable to verify for every customer or employee. And what it results is if the participant remains unreachable, then they are classified as a lost participant. All these search efforts must be documented to show good faith and compliance with fiduciary responsibilities and prevent any risk or compliance violations. Now let's take a moment to look at what we built for this process. Here is a simplified view of the discrepant address process that I was able to outline in the UiPath Maestro platform. The key thing I want people to take away from this is there's three main actors in this process. The first is going to be the automations that we use to conduct research against the internal systems, query the third-party sources, or even do things like sending emails to our employees. The second actor is going to be the agents we're using as part of this process. In my example, I have three. I have one agent that's going to normalize across all three internal systems. I have a second agent that's going to reconcile the normalized data from the internal search to that third-party search. And then I have the third and final agent that is going to conduct external research on the web if an address is not matched in the corresponding time period. Let's take a deeper dive into a use case where the agent was confidently able to match the normalized data from our internal systems in a third-party search. In this case, I can see the audit from that particular participant reconciliation agent. I can see the variables it's using in its decision, and I can notice that both the third-party and internal sources are saying that Patricia lives at 6 Wheelhouse Way in Kittery Point, Maine. Once the agent finds that match, it takes the correct path and goes on to end the process. For folks who aren't familiar with automation, this is a quick clip of how the robot is able to go to my third-party site, anyhoo.com, and look up Patricia's information to get the relevant address. Let's look at more of the development environment, how exactly that agent can be configured to input and output the desired data for this process. Here is the prompt that we're using for that participant reconciliation agent. Relatively straightforward. The things I want to highlight are twofold. One, we have input arguments to the process where we're telling the agent to expect the normalized data from our internal systems. And then we also have the information from the third-party search. I would argue more importantly is the output we get from this agent. We have two outputs. One is going to be a Boolean field, whether or not the agent feels the addresses match, and then two, a brief explanation outlining its decision making. This will all feed back into our full audit log and controls that we have with these different agents. Let's review another instance of this process where the agent flagged an exception between the two addresses that it's receiving. Very similar to before, I have an active workflow where I'm conducting these internal and external searches, but you can see this workflow is waiting for human review. I have a full audit of all the different processes that are being executed as part of this discrepant address workflow. In this case, Let's go and open the task that is waiting for a human to review. I have a very simple app that's outlining the results from the internal search and the results from the third-party search. In this case, our participant is Michael, and we can notice that the two addresses listed do not in fact match. So as a human user, I can verify this and type in my comments and say, reject the workflow here. Once I go ahead and I reject that workflow, it's going to trigger the remaining steps of the process. In this case, it's going to initiate that contact procedure. It's going to wait a predefined amount of time. And if that time passes, it's going to the internet and trying to decide whether or not it can find information related to Michael that could be useful to the internal employee conducting this match. As the agent's executing, we can see the results to that web search and the information it's pulling back. While this is running, let's take a deeper dive into that agent. Similar to the agent we had that was doing the address reconciliation, we have a simple prompt that's defining what exactly we want this research agent to do. The one difference is I have a tool configured for this agent that's going out to that third-party website and conducting that web search to do research on Michael's information. Once this agent is called from the workflow, it should produce a nicely formatted email that we can send to an internal employee to finish the remainder of the research. When I go back to the workflow, you can see that the research agent has completed and it's gone ahead and sent that research email. So let's take a quick look at what exactly that looks like. Here is the example of the email that it's sending to an internal user regarding Michael and his recent news articles or important life events to help decide the human's next step in processing this file. The last thing I want to talk about from a technology perspective is how we can bundle all these automations as part of a solution. We talked about the research agent. We talked about the participant reconciliation agent. When we create these projects within the UiPath environment, we not only bundle the agents and the process together, but also the different automations that we have as part of this end-to-end workflow. What this gets us is we're able to deploy all of these different components as a whole package. And when we go to our orchestrator folders, everything is in one unified spot. You no longer have to publish each object individually in order to push that project to production. Managing participant data manually comes with some serious challenges: high compliance risk, scattered or outdated records, incorrect benefit administration, and incomplete coverage. Automation solves all of these problems by enabling quarterly compliance checks to reduce regulatory risk. It's very easy to integrate with existing systems to avoid costly upgrades, and it enables us to keep constant contact with our participants and better serve them and improve their experience working with the firm. The result is lower risk, better accuracy, and stronger relationships with our end users.